Hello, good people. Welcome to the video version of the Tone Mob podcast. I've been doing the audio version for years and years, and there are hundreds of episodes available in your audio podcast player if that is more your thing, the way it's more my thing. Today, I am talking to Phil McKnight. Phil McKnight has been doing guitar YouTube for so long, and I wanted to dive into it because while people know his videos, they know his face, they know he knows his gear, they don't tend to know much about the man himself. So I wanted to dive into all that, and boy, did we dive into it. This episode is fantastic. I really appreciate the time that Phil took to hang out with me for so long. We actually did a full 2 hours extra on Patreon. That's right. This is an hour and a half. We did 2 full hours on Patreon. So if you like this show, if it's your thing and you'd like to support it, you can go over to Patreon and check it out there. It's just $5 a month and you'll get extra access to a bunch of content every single week that the general public does not get access to. So without further ado, let's get into this episode with my dude, Phil. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have a long overdue guest, Mr. Phil McKnight. What's going on, dude?
Nothing much. How are you doing?
I'm excited. I'm excited to get into this episode. We've chatted a lot at various gear events over the years, and gotten to know you, a lot better than just through the interwebs. And I thought It was. I think people have been watching you for years. You were doing this before I was. Like, you were one of the people that was like, hey, maybe I could do some internet guitar-related nonsense. And I thought, but there's so much about Phil that I don't know, and I think the general guitar community doesn't know. So I thought getting into your story would be fun.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where I'm always like, it's funny. You think I do this every week, but usually it's just about guitar stuff. So it's like, to me, I'm more of a, if it's about guitars, I could talk about it. Usually everything else, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah. But like you developed that expertise somehow, and I'm sure you've learned things as you've been making content over the years. But, I know you had a store at one point and you've had all kinds of other businesses, but like what was the transition like going from the store? The history of that's a little bit foggy to me. How did you end up kind of transitioning to this more full time?
Sure. So basically, I want to say 2015. That sounds about right. 2015. The store, like a lot of businesses, were doing some YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a couple. I didn't actually do them. It's funny enough. There's another owner of the store. His name's Ralph. He was doing them, and I would join him and do them, the same video. They look exactly like what all store videos look like now, right? Like,
right.
Hey, it's 2 guys talking about the thing that's new that week. And what's funny was I didn't, I did repair full time. It was kind of the main thing I did was repairing guitars. I really enjoyed it. And throughout the years of the store, I had it for 13 years. Throughout the years of the store, certain times I would the store would get busy and I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do the repair anymore. And it never worked out because the clientele list was pretty dedicated, which is nice, right? It's a nice, very, very cool thing to be able to say. So the way it would work is I would come in 2 hours before the store opened every day, and I'd usually work until about an hour after the store closed every day, doing repairs about 6 days a week. An insane amount of a backlog of instruments all the time. And one day, I don't know why, I thought, oh, I should do some videos on YouTube, but for myself. And the reason why what happened was my buddy Matt, who was a customer in the store, he's a hand surgeon, and he would drive across town to ask me a question. And he would film me with his phone. Okay. And one day I just said to him, I said, Matt, you don't have to drive all the way, across town in rush hour traffic because, he has to come after he gets off work.
Right.
I'll just film it and send it to you. So I would put them on Facebook, right? I'd put these videos on Facebook like, hey, and I didn't say his name. I just like, here's how I did this, or here's how you do that. or here's how I'm adjusting a knob, whatever it is, right? And then one day he was like, hey, could you put this on YouTube? Because that way I can download it. And I was like, sure. So I put it on YouTube. Now, at that time, I was getting what I thought was insane views on Facebook. I was getting like 300-400 views per video, right? I was like, that's crazy. I don't know why so many people are watching this. I thought, I don't even know 300 people. So I'd just put them on, right? I'd put them on YouTube, and I started posting this stuff on YouTube. And of course, like a lot of people on YouTube, some people started watching. It gets a little following going, right? Most of that following, you understand, is like 90% of the following. Well, not really, but what felt like 90% of the following is really just my friends and customers and stuff, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's who I'm talking to all day, at the shop, to the point where like I would do a video and somebody would come in the store and go, hey, is my guitar done? I saw you did a video yesterday. So obviously, like, like in other words, like if you had time to do the video, you had time to finish my guitar. Right. so I'd be like, so I would, and then what would happen is, this is how crazy it was. I would get up every morning, take my daughter to school with my wife. And then I'd come back, film the video, right? Drive to the store, right? And then work. And that's how, so I added this new element to my daily routine. And, I hated it. I hated making videos. It was not something I enjoyed. I enjoyed talking about guitar. My repair, I had a repair shop in the back store, but I had a bench in the front of the store. Now it's common. You see it everywhere. I don't want to be like the guys like, yeah, no one was doing it before me, but it was definitely not like you see it now. When you walked in our store, the first thing you saw was me in a repair bench, and I had a plexiglass shield so you couldn't touch anything on my workbench, but you would watch me just work like a sushi chef, right?
Right.
And I would let you, if you came in and you wanted to sit there the whole time while I worked on your guitar, I would let you watch. I didn't care. I would just do it and answer questions and work. And so here's what's funny. This is going on for a little while. And we started noticing, like a negative effect, if that makes any sense. What I mean by that is, like, the Andersons guys and those guys, it's like, wow, they're exploding and they're selling more stuff through a store. Well, the problem was we're not really a retail online store.
Right.
Right. We're just we had the largest lesson academy in the state of Arizona. We only did, had lessons for guitar players. It was huge. It was hundreds and hundreds of students coming every week. So we have this lesson academy, of a repair shop, and then of course a retail outlet that only sells guitars. It's only a guitar store. So it only sells guitar stuff. No PAs, no drums, nothing. And because it's not an internet system, people online aren't really purchasing from us.
They're just watching the content.
Right. But what's happening is people who are local are coming in every day to talk about the video I made. Right. So think about this. One day, this is a true story. One day the store was packed. I lost my voice. Like, I lost it at the end of the day. It was gone. It was 9:30 at night. I'm talking to Ralph. He's one of the owners. My wife's an owner. And I said, man, my voice is just shot. It was just gone. And I said, yeah, we must have, how much did we make today? It must have been insane. And they go, $230.
Oh,
and I'm
geez.
like, what? Like, that's not even 10%. That's not even 2% of what we would do in a day, right? I'm like, what happened? They go, well, they were all really here to see you. They were just talking to you, right? And they weren't really here to buy anything. And so I was like, oh. So at some point, obviously, like any sane people, we had a discussion like, do we start building a website, stronger website presence for the store, try to market it onto this me? But here's the problem. At that point, I said, if I wanted to do that, I would have done more videos with Ralph for the store channel videos, right?
Right.
I said, I'm not really digging this. And this is why the story's funny. And I've opened up about this particular part of the story more over the years. Towards the beginning, I kept it more closer to the chest. You'll know why in a second. So 2017, I'm going to the NAMM show. I tell my wife, but I tell Ralph, I said, when I get back, I'm never going to do YouTube again, or I'm never coming to the store again. And I laughed. Now, this is the inside joke. We all knew what it meant. I was done with YouTube. My plan was, and I couldn't tell you exactly how many subscribers I had then. Probably 70,000, maybe 100, close to 100,000.
It was enough that I knew who you were.
It was.
When we met briefly at that show,
Well, put it like as a reference. October of 2017, I had 100,000 subscribers. So we're talking about January of that same year.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to understand at that point, and so I still don't know anything. So at the time, I'd never worked with companies really. I didn't know YouTubers got paid. I didn't know anything. I was just making content. And all I noticed was Guitar World was constantly taking my content and throwing it on their website, which of course like gives you like this huge feeling of air in your chest, like, wow, right? Like, what? Like they're sharing my how-to video. Like, what? This is crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, discussion was, do we turn this into like the McKnight show of selling stuff, cause hey, we saw the successful companies, obviously Anderton's huge, right? They mastered it. And, but like I said, I hated it. So I go, I'm not going to make content. I go, I'm done with this. I go, I'm going to go to the NAMM show. And the last previous shows, the 2015 and 16 show, I went and I was like a hybrid YouTuber / store owner, right? Doing my, both my business and then making some content. So I go to the Winter NAMM and I got in I don't want to say argument, but a discussion with the guys at Fender, right? Okay. The sales team at Fender. And now keep in mind, they don't know, no one knows, that I plan to, when I get back to like, I don't know if I was going to delete the channel. I don't know what the plan was, but there was no interest to continue, in fact, also a funny note, a funny haha note is, I know YouTube. Well, when I say I didn't even know YouTubers got paid, AdSense would send you an email saying you need to collect your funds.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a scam, right? So I would delete it. In fact, at some point it had $1,500 in it, and my wife, who's super smarter than I am, because I told her it was a scam. Like I'm like, they don't pay you; it's just a scam. And so what she did was she created like I don't know if it was like another PayPal account. She created some kind of payment account and got a computer. It wasn't hooked to anything, and then set it all up to see if it would deposit into this, and it did. It was $1,500, and I was like, what the heck? So I go, this is amazing. Actually, I lied. At that time, it was probably closer to 15,000 because it'd been a while. Right. But I mean, the first one I ever saw was $1,500. It was accumulating over time. So back to the NAMM show. I'm talking to Fender guys, and I mentioned to them, I said, just like I do, like with you, like with everybody, having conversations, honest conversations. I said, they said, oh, your YouTube channel seems to be doing really well, and they said something to the fact, like, I saw you talking about Mesa Boogie amps, and you don't carry Mesa Boogie amps. I'm like, no, I bought it from Jean Paul at the music store, and I did a video about it. And they're like, why would you do a video of an amp your store doesn't carry? And I go, well, it's out of my bedroom, my house. I'm like, it's not really attached to my store, right? It's not my store channel. Like, to me, it was so clear, like they were so different, from each other. Mm-hmm. But to the rep was like, I don't understand. You should do a video of the new blah, blah, blah. And we'll do it right now. And I was like, no, I'm not really interested in that. I said, it's not really where I want to go. I said, there's a lot of people doing it really well. And then I made this comment. This is the interesting comment that changed everything for me. I said, look, the YouTube's going to change everything. It's going to be huge. And I said, and I get it. But I really like what I'm doing. I said, look at Chapman. I said, Chapman Guitars, it's huge. It's what he's doing is huge. Mm-hmm. And they said, Chapman Guitars, they go, they'll never sell as many guitars, like dollar wise, as Fender sells picks.
Oh,
right. And I said, and remember, these are just sales reps, right? So I don't want you to think like it's the high ups at Fender or anything, right?
Right.
It's just that,
and it's also years ago. Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's just people at the NAMM booth, at the Fender booth talking. And I said, but I should point out some of the people were in the room talking, were in the marketing side too. And so, I mean, they should have been in the know. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, you guys just paid Chapman to do a video of a Fender. And in the video, he said clearly, it was a great guitar because it reminds him of his Chapman. You just paid him to advertise his guitar. Like I said, you wake up today and you think every ad is an expense. And he woke up today thinking more ads, more money. Mm-hmm. Right? Like his whole goal is if I can talk about Chapman more, I make more money. Not because I'm selling more, just the selling of it makes him money. And then he gets to sell it. Right?
Right.
And I said, you have to understand, that's huge, right? That's a much different concept. I said, let me explain something to you. I said, and I was getting upset as I do, right? Like, like this, right? I'm like opinionated now. And I said, look, in a store, my number one cost is education. Somebody comes in the store and wants a G&L or a Fender. I have to spend 30 minutes explaining what G&L is to somebody to make the same amount of money if they just would have bought a Fender. That's why a store doesn't want to teach somebody about G&L. They just want you to buy a Fender. You come in, you want a Fender, and you buy a Fender, and then you shut up and you leave, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. I said, teaching is an expense. On YouTube, teaching is the income. If I tell people about G&L over you, I make money. I said, you understand that's a different shift. The shift is the income, the expense is now the income, right? Mm-hmm. And they said, I don't see it, Phil. Chapman's not going to be anything. I go, you're confused. I'm not talking about Chapman. I'm talking about the 500 replications of Chapman that will exist in 10 years. Yep. And you're going to have to fight 500 people's independent businesses whose marketing budget isn't a budget, it's an income stream, right? Mm-hmm. And I go, and the small company that you've been dominating for years because your budget's $1 million advertised and their budget was zero, their budget is now infinity because they're like, how many more things can I post today and make more money, right?
Yeah, because YouTube's going to pay me to do it, eventually, so why not? And it gives me the opportunity to talk about the thing that I want to talk about. So, right. Yeah.
So I get all passionate and I'm talking and I'm walking out and all I'm thinking is like, I'm aggravated, right? I'm aggravated. Like my dog just facing behind me. Sorry. So aggravated because I'm sitting there going, how do they not see it? Right. I mean, I get their point of view, their Fender, right? I mean, again, just like Gibson, iconic, huge. However, like, this is a problem for them, right? And I go, so what's nice is I live in Arizona, so it's a 6-hour drive from Anaheim back to Phoenix. So I'm driving as I do after this show, right? You have 6 hours to ponder. Podcasts weren't that huge yet, right? They were huge, but you're listening to like 1 or 2 podcasts and you still have a couple hours to think. And all I'm thinking is, in my brain, YouTube started in 2006. It's 2017. In my brain, YouTube's not over. It's like everybody knows about it. It's huge, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, this whole industry thinks YouTube they don't even know it exists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? I'm thinking it's season 5 of Happy Days, and they don't even know Happy Days is a show, right?
Right.
Like, right? Yep. And I'm like, I'm going to make money teaching smaller companies how to do this. Like how, so the first company, believe it or not, was at the show. I actually am telling the story slightly out of order. I hope you don't mind.
No, it's all good.
A few years ago. I feel pretty good now because I can talk about some of the stuff in this part too. I didn't want to talk about, but now I can. The first company I helped was String Swing.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
String Swing, which is an amazing company, made in USA, quality stuff, right? Small mom and pop company. Actually, it's the I shouldn't say mom and pop, but you idea, right? They own it, and then their son does the marketing and stuff. Smart people, great quality stuff, and they had an issue. The issue was they were being knocked off at Amazon by fake string swings sold on Amazon.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was killing them, right? Just killing them fighting this stuff. And so now I have this mission, right? That I'm going to be like this YouTube guru, right? And I'm going to teach companies, not YouTube, but just like what Fender doesn't see. And again, it's not against Fender. I'm a huge Fender fan, but just a big corporate thing. You understand? Big companies. I want the small companies to see the asset that's out there.
Yes.
So I tell the guys at String Swing, I said, how's the NAMM show going? This is, again, still at the show after the Fender meeting. And they go, not that great. We're not selling a lot of stuff. The booth costs a fortune. I said, let me do a video. So I did a video right then, right? I launched it right to the internet. And of course, you could look it up on the channel. It's on there still to this day. I think we got like 6,000 views in the first couple hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and show them my phone and they're like, what? And they're like, what? Like, this is so crazy. And I go, right, this is all you need, right? Like, you don't need to be here, right? And I said, I saw the article, I read the article in the Music Trade and magazine that you're being knocked off by companies and more knockoffs are being sold on Amazon than real string swings.
Wow.
And they said, yeah, that was true. It was in the trades. It was an article. And they were like so sad and somber. And they're like, yeah. And I said, you need to kick everyone off Amazon and you need to be the only authorized seller on Amazon. And then therefore, Amazon will shut everybody down because literally you'll be the only one that can sell on Amazon. And they said, oh, our dealers. I go, look, you're protecting your dealers, right? I said, you have to stop thinking the way you did in the 90s. Like, this is how it works now. You're the authorized seller on Amazon. You hold the price line so that you keep the price. I said, look, and obviously at the time I'm still a dealer. I go, no other company is giving me a quality made in USA product with great margins. I go, I make 3 times my money. I'm buying this for, $4. I get to sell it for $14.99 in my store. That's great margin. And it's a quality product, right?
Yeah.
And I said, and if people come in my store and they see $14.99 on the wall, they go to Amazon, it says $6.99. It's fake. That's hurting me. And I said, you need to rethink this. And they thought I was crazy, right? But I think the 6,000 views and that, all that stuff in my conversation. And so that's why I said I can talk about it now. They took all that advice. They're like one of my biggest champions for me. They tell this story, to other companies like, yeah, Phil said this. And all of a sudden we did it. They even kind of always say it like, yeah, this crazy YouTube guy was like, you need to just make content and get out there. And I said, reach out to and I gave him a list of everybody from Aggiefish to Music Is Win. And I said, get out there and talk to these social media guys. And I was like, I go, this is 2017 still. I go, not to be a jerk, but the NAMM organization actually has a policy that I'm not supposed to be filming in the building. I said, just to give you an idea how this antiquated the industry is, it's actually against the NAMM organization 2017 to be filming anything in there. And here, literally, I can make content that literally helps you in an astronomical way. And
is that still the rule? That can't still be the rule.
I think they've actually fixed it.
Okay, I was like, surely not, because I remember people filming. My first show was 2016, and then by 2018 there were people everywhere with cameras. Right? Yeah, I was like, surely that's not still the case. But you never know with NAMM. They can be a little weird sometimes. And so I come back, obviously, from all this experience. I'm all juiced up, had this, thinking the whole drive. I came back, of course, to tell Ralph and my wife, I go, I'm not going to do the store anymore. I go, this is what I'm going to do. I said, this is the plan. And I said, you guys just run the store. And then they were like, yeah, we don't want to run the store. They go, all it is every day is like, is Phil here? Is Phil here? Or they're like, you'll be helping a customer and somebody will come in and they're like, I can help you. And they're like, well, we'll just wait for Phil. Right. And they're like, so it's not really the same. And so since we had the Lesson Academy, the plan was we'll keep the Lesson Academy and ditch the store. Does it make sense? Yeah.
And then long story short, I had a dinner with the teachers. And I gave them, again, I love them dearly. They're all my close friends still, right? But they unfortunately were like Fender and all the companies at the time. They couldn't see it. I said, here's what's going to happen. We're going to move it across the street just to a Lesson Academy. I'm going to let you guys keep 90% of the money, right? So in other words, it's going to be a huge pay raise for you guys. And I go, I'm just going to basically, when I talk, I'll just always mention like, hey, I have a Lesson Academy. You can go down and meet my teachers, right? And all this stuff, kind of just, I'll send revenue. And I said, but I need you guys to be owners in this. You know, we're going to create an LLC and we'll all be a partnership, right? And
have some skin in the game. So
have some skin in the game. But I go, but I'll foot everything. And I go, you know, at this point, the channel makes enough. Like I literally, you know, this is the only income I really need. I said, so I could just do this. And I go, and I don't even need to, I could even defer any equity that I get for a few years, you know, right? Just to make sure everything's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but you don't understand, this will be huge. It'll explode. And 13 teachers and not one wanted to do the deal. They were like,
wow.
Yeah, they just like they were all like, they all said, now it's weird. And again, I've, you know, like I said, if they weren't my close friends and I still don't talk to them all, this would be a weirder thing to say publicly. But, you know, they thought my YouTube-ness was like, well, yeah, Phil, but in a year or two when, you know, your star has fallen,
right?
So to speak, right? You know, right? YouTube's over, and the new thing that comes to replace YouTube is gone. Like, right? They were a little afraid of it. They didn't know. So the good news is, and this is nice. The good news is with the teachers, my wife did this crazy thing, which I still to this day is blown away by. She basically said, well, we have, I mean, you're talking about $12,000 to $15,000 of income a month come from the lesson programs. That's the profit to us.
Yeah.
Right. Which sounds crazy. And I always tell people that don't have businesses when they go, what? That's crazy. I'm like, just remember the rent was $7,000 a month. And right. I mean,
yes. Yeah. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And on.
The list goes on and on. So like, don't think that I'm just taking $15,000 a month as a profit. I wish.
That'd be great. I wish.
Yeah. I'd wish too. But what she did that was awesome was she goes, look, we got to move all these students somewhere. And the teachers really don't see this opportunity. So what she did that was great was she found a lesson academy down the road and went and talked to the owners. She talked to 3, 2 said no. They're probably regretting it heavily to this day. The third one said yes. And the deal was, she goes, look, I want to lower my students' cost. So I'm going to drop their rate a little bit. I'm going to raise how much you pay the teachers, but you're going to get an influx of hundreds of students, right? Mm-hmm. It's literally going to net you like, you know, 9,000. So, I mean, not what we were getting because we cut how much the store was going to get.
Sure.
Because to give it as a dividend to like, here, the teachers get more money and the students pay a little less. And that's also going to guarantee the movement, right? Of course, the students are going to go down a block down the road because their lessons just dropped $10 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers are getting like another $10 per student per month, right? So, I mean, not that you know, you get the idea. It's more money in their pocket. And they took the deal. So we moved them over there. To this day, think about this, that was 2018, 17, 18. Almost every single teacher that went there is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all the students are still there.
Wow. Nice.
That's why I said, that's how I keep in touch with them. I go down there and stuff. So
it's just so funny that not to interrupt, but like I had a very similar interaction, not exactly the same, but when I was starting the podcast, I actually had good friends of mine that mean well, and they're still friends, you know, similar situation, actually sit me down and be like, I don't know about this. Like, they're like, I don't know if this is going to be the thing. And I'm like, I don't either, but there's no harm in trying. Like, it's not going to, and they literally said, why don't you start a guitar store instead? Right. And I was like, do you understand how hard it is to start a guitar store?
Oh,
like,
it's crazy.
And they just didn't see it, kind of the same thing. And I'm like, I understand that you don't see it, and that's fine. I don't fault you at all for that. It is a weird thing to do, right. But it's not going to hurt me to give this a really good, solid try and see what happens. You know, it's just funny that we had a similar interaction around the same time, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'm sure, you know, obviously in your situation, same thing too. I get it. This was not tangible.
Yes.
In a world of tangible, in a world is a physical store has a physical space, you know, and all that stuff, right? Like they understood. I get it. That's why I said I don't fault anybody.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all.
Because even, you know, like I said, I'd like to say like I had it all figured out and they should all follow. The reality was I just had a hunch. And so I can understand like it could have easily gone just as horribly worse in every way. And you know what I mean? So it does, you know, like I said, it's just, but that was the main reason the store got closed. Also, I should also point out too, because it's like, again, crazy. The other thing that was required of Shauna, which you met Shauna, so you know Shauna's my wife. Yep. Shauna and Ralph, not only did there wasn't only just because everybody was like only wanted to talk to me all the time. The shopping center, the lease was coming due that year in June, which is why we closed the store in April, but obviously we held lease and everything till June, right? And so the lease was up in June, but the Starbucks, the grocery store, and the Petco left.
Traffic went.
And the shopping center had already been foreclosed on because of the recession, and so it was still bank owned, and the bank couldn't find a new buyer for the shopping center. And so what Shauna did and I did was we went to them and said, look, if we're losing 2 anchors and a Starbucks, we want to decrease the rent. And they said, well, we're not negotiating anything because obviously we want a new buyer to buy the shopping center, and they're not going to want to buy it if you have a 5-year lease at a lower rate.
Right.
So we're just going to go month to month at the current rate. And everybody's like, well, look, man, we don't want to pay this kind of rent if the anchor stores are gone. And what the bank didn't know, because the bank was looking at it, or that owned the shopping center, they were looking at it like the store had been here 13 years, right? And they were like, there's no way they're going to shut this business down, right?
Right, not over this.
Yeah, not over this. But what they didn't know was, Sean and Ralph are already like, well, Phil's leaving, right? There's not going to be anchor stores. Do we want to do this? And my wife, especially more so than Ralph, but Ralph was on board too. They really were convinced that the only way the store would survive is if they somehow hitched the wagon to the know your gear train. And they knew that was a sticking point for me. Right. And my wife really didn't want to be a shipping, because she's like, that's the future. The store is just like all the stores today. They're just shipping stuff online constantly because Phil talked about it this week and it will sell lots of it. Right. And they knew that that's like, it's dangerous. Well, especially my wife, who knows me really well. They know it's dangerous because you never know. I might go on a tirade the wrong way on a product. Right.
Right. But I've been known to go on a few of those myself.
Yeah. It's because the what people don't understand is like when I had the store for 13 years, especially going through a recession. Remember, I had to go through a huge recession with that business. I wasn't just the guy who talked to everybody all day and sold all the stuff and of course owned the business and stuff. I was the guy who bought all the product. Like that was my main function over Shauna and Ralph was I had to buy the inventory. So in other words, I picked it. So what happens to you then is you're messed in the head. You're the boss. Like it's in my head, So my first interactions with companies were always negative on YouTube because it was them coming to me and telling me what I should carry, basically carry, right? Like you should do a video about this. I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in that. Right. Like I'm used to my store. Like if it's in my store, it's because I thought it was cool and I wanted to carry it, right? When companies go, hey, you should carry the new red, this, I'd be like, I don't like that. I don't because I have and you suffer from this too. I have a passion for this. And because of that, my passion can be infectious. So if I have something on the wall, so to speak, that I love, I could get you to love it too. I could at least you're going to get a full effort of it. Right.
Right.
What I don't have is a salesman side.
Right.
That knows how to do that same energy. Right. When I don't love it.
I don't have that in my body either. I can't pretend that I love something that I don't love. It's not there.
Yeah, Shauna says, my wife says it oozes out of me. So she's like, if you don't like it, kind of just oozes out. Like you just tell that there's something, a miss.
Yeah,
right. And so so that's how I got on YouTube.
Almost by accident, and you almost quit. And I remember you talking about that. I was hoping you would feel comfortable talking about the almost quitting YouTube thing because it was at a really weird time where most people, we just talked about it. Most people didn't see what it was. And that's the thing is weird because, even now, some people still don't see it, which is kind of wild to me. I'm like, 2023, like YouTube's not going anywhere. YouTube is the second largest search engine on the internet, and it's owned by the largest search engine on the internet. It's not going anywhere. YouTube is mainstream to me now. It's not this weird thing that nobody's heard of, you know. My grandpa has his favorite YouTubers. He's in his 80s. Like,
yes. Yeah. Well, yes. And it's a weird animal. We talked about this off camera too. That it's like, just, I go out of my way to not tell people what I do now, because I never know what reaction I'm going to get. Right. And a lot of it is like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? Like, I'm like, that's not like, they look at you like, that's not a job. And you're like, no, it's totally a job. I mean, millions of people are doing it now. I mean, it's not like, you know, there's 3 people doing it on this platform. It's millions of people.
Well, it's one of 2 reactions, right? It's either, what is that? Really? You can make money doing that? Like, really? Or they think you're Logan Paul. You know, they're like, oh, so you got it like that. It's like, no, it's not like that. Like,
I never get that. You know what I get constantly from people is that they think my wife makes the money, which I'm totally cool with. Like, they're all convinced that, like, I'm shooting videos and avoiding real job. And Shauna's out there making the bread and supporting my craziness, right? And I have to admit, it depends on my mood. I will let them either believe that or not, depending on my mood, which a lot of times I will let them believe that. Like, I'm just like, I just kind of, it's a hobby. I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah. It is a tremendous, I mean, I think anybody that's actually tried, though, even if they ended up not sticking to it for very long, realizes like, oh, this is actually more challenging than what it looks like. It certainly looks like we're just sitting down and having a good old time. And we are having a good old time oftentimes, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff and a lot of things that people just don't realize till they give it a try. Like, it's a job. Like, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of time.
And it's impossible. That's the other problem part. That's tough, right? It's an impossible thing. Like, when people say, because they'll, you know, even my closest friends like to say this to me, you got really lucky. And I'm like, yeah, look, it's an insane amount of work, right? And then, you have to be lucky. Like, it's actually that horrible to say out loud. Like, you have to basically put an insane amount of horsepower behind this. And then if you're not lucky, that still won't even matter, right? I'd love to tell people, like, if you just try and you try and try and try, you'll get there. Like, no, you have to try and try and try and hope that something clicks or lands or like some kind of thing happens that turns all that hard work. But on
the other side of that, the harder you work and the more you do, the luckier people tend to get, as it turns out. Yeah.
Well, of course. Well, think about this. Like, the biggest thing to happen, the biggest misconception, if we're talking about YouTube and especially gear channels, because I stick to the the nerd YouTube I know, which is the gear community, right? People don't understand, that you have to make an insane catalog first. I tell people all the time, people are like, like, people talk about, like, if you just make one video and go viral, how great that was. I'm like, dude, that'd be horrible. That'd be the worst thing. If you made one video and it went viral, it'd be the worst thing to ever happen to you. Because the first time, the 2 things, there was like 2 or 3 things that I remember that happened to me. And if they would have happened without a catalog behind it, it wouldn't have done me any good. The first was my first viral video that broke like 1 million or 2 million views, right? If it wasn't for the fact that when that video takes off, that then a percentage of those people that watch it then binge watched 5 or 10 other videos, right? That without those videos behind it, it would have been no good. The fact is, when I got my first real big shout out, that was Jared Dines. Jared Dines, would do this thing where he would just pick some smaller YouTube channels and do a shout out like, hey, check these guys out, right?
Right.
And he grabbed my channel one day. And same thing, if I had 1 or 2 videos, somebody might have clicked them. But having a catalog of content, right? That, it's like, perfect example is your podcast, right? Is that when somebody discovers your podcast, your real success is not that they listen to a show. The real success is that you have a catalog of shows behind it, and that they know from this show what to expect on other shows, right? Which is why I like my favorite advice to give, and I barely feel qualified to give it, is, like I said, build a catalog, but build a consistent catalog of a type of video, right? It's okay to be all over the place, right? But definitely like if your podcast was like 1 week's a cooking show and 1 week's a guitar show, right? Like if one of them go viral, it's not going to help you because they're going to go back and go, well, this isn't what I liked, right?
Right.
They want to literally binge out your catalog, especially podcasts more so than YouTube. But and so, like I said, like you said, you have to have the entire workload behind you.
And there's some momentum to that too, right? Because somebody finds one thing because maybe they're a fan of yours and they are like, oh, I want to listen to this thing with Phil. Hey, you know what? That was a fun chat. Oh, wow. He also talked to Josh Scott. Oh, he also talked to Robert Keeley. Oh, he also talked to this guy. And pretty soon it's like, I don't care who he's talking to.
Right. Right.
It builds and builds on itself. And it's not for everybody. Some people click on this, listen to 5 minutes, are like, this guy's an idiot, and they don't ever come back, which is fine. It's not for them.
That's half the people listen to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for them, but the people that it does resonate with, the people that do enjoy your style, whatever that style happens to be, they're in for the long haul. And people tend to forget about that, but we all have people like that in our lives. I have bands that like I'll order every single release they ever come out with because I'm a huge fan of that band and I've followed them for 20 years. We all have things like that in our lives. Like, oh, I love Star Wars and, I love this. I'm going to go see every single thing in this particular brand or this particular artist or this particular whatever. We all have something like that. And I think people have a hard time accepting or realizing that they have the potential to be that for somebody else.
Right. And like I said, so it's been an interesting journey. I still, I like it now. I'm more in my skin than I've been in years. When I first started, this was, like I said, my intent, and especially I want to say the diehard viewers already kind of knew this. I would say anything pre-COVID, that's a perfect example. Post-COVID is where the change happens. But pre-COVID, everybody kind of knew that I was making, I was really focused on working with companies. I was doing all this stuff behind the scenes with companies, doing what I just told you with like what I did with
String Swing. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, kind of like, hey, here's some viral marketing ideas. Here's some great ways to, rethink this. Right. And that was still my focus. And of course I was doing YouTube almost like a resume to like justify that. Like, hey, look, I have some content and it's doing well. And this is, so listen to me when I tell you, this is where I think you should do this. Mm-hmm. Because of, like I said, what I learned in 2017 plus, because you really understand social media. So having an understanding of it, you understand how inept everybody is. And their first inkling is to get it's like most companies in our industry, the person who drew the shortest straw is now in charge of social media.
Oftentimes, yes.
Right. And which drives me absolute bonkers, right? Because I remember I'll have like a powerful conversation I had once was I was talking to a company and they said, well, when we post, we only get like 300 views. And I go, what does that cost you?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, it doesn't cost anything. And I go, right. So 300 people free is a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of people. And I go, besides, you're thinking of views. I go, you're not in the view business. You're not in the clicks business. You're in the sales business.
Mm-hmm.
All you really care is how many of the 300 converted to a sale.
Yep.
And I go, and I got good news and bad news for you. One, you've been wasting a lot of time. That's the bad news. The good news is that the higher the view count, the lower the conversion goes.
Mm-hmm.
So 300 is going to get a lot of people who are excited to purchase, right? And I actually had this crazy conversation with Toman, believe it or not, of all companies.
Really?
Coleman was buying. Oh, they're gonna kill me for this. They were buying views on YouTube. It made me nuts. I was furious. I was at one of the events. Yeah,
that's wild.
They did this thing. It's still up to this day. They did this thing when they did the first Gear University thing. They took one of their videos they made and had dude, it's seriously. It had 800,000 views and had 6 comments.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I go, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's just, I go, and they were like, they were obviously like everybody trying to figure it out. Right. And they were having the YouTubers come out. Right. And they were having the YouTubers like us make the videos, and they were making their own videos, but and I thought their videos were great. I said, look, your guys are great. Your videos are put together great, but they were like, the views are low. And I said, dude, what are you talking about? What is the person that I want you to think in your head right now. What does the person look like that can't wait for a music store video to post next week?
Right.
I go, you understand, right? You have to understand when you get 5,000 clicks, that's 5,000 people who just can't wait to see a new product next week. That's exactly what you're looking for, right? These are people who are like, I got money. I just needs to know what to spend it on.
Right.
If somebody could just, right? Like next week, like if their calendar said next week, mow lawn, buy some guitar, right?
Right.
Like that's the person you have. I said, that's an amazing person. I go, who cares if you get another 20,000 clicks of people watching your video? I go, you're not in the clicks business, right? I said, you're making great content and you're trying to grow that audience. You're not trying to grow it from 5,000 to 20,000. You're trying to go from 5,000 to 5,500. Mm-hmm. And those next 500 people are hard to find. I said, we're not in the same business. I'm not selling anything on I said, when I do a review, I could give 2 craps. If anyone buys it, I don't get a revenue from that. I get a revenue from, I made the content. So I am trying to get more people to watch it because I'm getting more clicks, more ads. That revenue drives for me. If there's an affiliate link, that's still not even a really good indication because most of the affiliates are generic, right? In other words, they might click the affiliate because of that product, but I get paid if they buy that product or some other product they bought. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So essentially, then my motivation is really just to get them over to click on the affiliate link, not so much to buy that product, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I like the companies I work with. And of course, I want them to do well. I mean, I wouldn't work with them if I didn't want them to do well. But I said, my focus is more on please come back and watch again. Like, that's my focus.
You are in the clicks business. It's a different thing.
Yeah, I am in the clicks business. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Like, just come back and watch again. Come back and watch again. Right. I said, but you're in the sales business, which means you don't need an infinity pool of, customers because they don't exist anyways. Right. Just grow it slow. And that's where I focused. But then when COVID happened, like I said, somehow I got more into my own skin, and now I actually probably make content more. I actually enjoy it a little bit more. Like I come up with ideas and I'll go, okay, this is more of an idea, not so much to get clicks, but just because I think, oh, this would be an interesting idea. Why don't I flesh this out?
Yep. Now it's a shift. Like I think people have come around. It's just a weird thing. And I see this sometimes. What a lot of people don't realize is it's really hard to get people to care about a brand the same way that they're going to care about an individual creator. Now, they may love the brand. They may love the product. They may recommend it to all their friends. That all can exist. But as far as absorbing their content regularly, that's always going to be a tougher sell than just an individual creator or an artist, Sure. If you just, a lot of people, I think, have a hard time thinking about their own behaviors and realizing that most people also follow a similar pattern. Like I follow a lot of brands in this space because this is my work. This is what I do for a living. So,
right.
But I don't follow even brands that I like. Very rarely do I follow brands outside of this space. I have other things I'm into. I follow a couple like lifting companies, but I don't follow all of them. like I don't follow like all of the barbell manufacturers, even though I'm interested in that stuff. I'll navigate over their page and look at stuff once in a while, but I don't want my feed full of that. But I do follow a lot of the athletes that are in that sport.
Right.
And so I think getting brands to realize, like, yes, you need to make content. Yes, you should be doing this. Unless you shift it to the focus on a personality, I will always point to JHS as the best example of this.
Yeah, of course.
Like, you're just going to have a hard time getting people to want to follow your brand stuff. But that's okay, because you're not in that business. You should be producing, you should be doing these things, but manage your expectations as well. And really think about what your actual goals are. Like, buying views is for a brand is just dumb.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they, but the good news is they learn, right? Like I said, Tolman learns, right? Mm-hmm. I think their pressure was they needed the event to be perceived as huge, right? Mm-hmm. And like I said, I get it. That's what I said. It's been a fun journey because, I like music so much, and I like guitars so much, and this is all I talk about and think about, right? I don't even, like I said, I tell people this how sad it is. I have no other hobbies, no other things. This is it. And to me, one of the greatest gifts that were given to this industry, because this industry has never had it's never been a big industry. Think about this. Never. They never had, product placements in the new Transformer movie, right? There's no right? There's no like Transformer movie where it's like Pepsi, Taco Bell, Paul Reed Smith, right? Yeah. There's none of that stuff, right? So they never had that. No. All they really ever had was magazines, in-store promotion, right? Mm-hmm. Artists. And that's about it. Some companies like Fender, FMIC were big enough. They have departments where they can send product to movie companies for product placement in shows and movies and stuff, right?
But Fender, just to reiterate your point, even Fender is owned by a Hawaiian car dealership. So right.
Right. So yeah, it's a tiny industry. And to me, and I'm happy, actually. I'm very happy that the bigger companies didn't pay attention for so long. And I don't even know if all of them are even paying attention now. But I love now that, somebody can create a company, make a really good living, stay passionate about their, because the death of all of this stuff is always the investors, right? Once you have two customers, mm-hmm. It becomes a little tricky, right? Once you have one customer is the person buying your product and one customer is the person waiting for a dividend, it becomes it's a hard thing to start balancing, right?
Yes.
And so that's what's one thing I love about smaller businesses. It's not that I have this like, they're just great because they're small. There is an idea in there that's like, hey, I just want the customer to be happy, right? And mm-hmm. Right now, the only customer I have are the ones buying products, so I'm going to focus on that. And like I said, to see more of them succeed on a level now, you know what I mean? It's crazy because like I said, in this industry, there was no choices. There was just Guitar World or guitar magazines, mm-hmm. which are pretty much gone now, and artists are unobtainable now. The cost of artists now has got, and again, this isn't a negative artist thing. This is, hey, look, I get it. Right. Mm-hmm. I use Eddie Van Halen as a perfect example. Once you get to a level where you're like, look, I'm just going to start a brand, then stop lending my name to a brand. Yep. Right. He sets a bar, a standard. Then another artist goes, well, I'm not that level, but I definitely deserve this much, right? And how this side of it works.
Yep.
And one of my favorite being, I shouldn't say favorite. She said it was a horrible thing, but it's things
interesting.
Interesting things. Probably a great word. Interesting. Mm-hmm. When a small company goes, hey, I'm thinking about reaching out to this, and they name some rock star and having them, sponsor my product or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, like literally it's going to cost more than probably you made this year, and
oftentimes,
they're like, Yeah, oftentimes I go, you can't, they're not just going to, they're just not going to grab the product and go with it like you think. But here's the good news, you can start out small. Why don't you start an Instagram? Why don't you, right? Why don't you build a following that you actually can, right? Because you can actually do it, and you can do it with anything from no budget to, and like I said, I think you knew this, and a lot of people, so many people on my channel know this. Until I got 100,000 subscribers, I've told this story publicly now a bunch of times, so it'll be my first time telling it off my own channel. So when I went to the very first GitCon, which was in October of 2017, so you see the timeline, right? I'm going to be a YouTuber now in 2017. I went to GitCon, which is in Germany with all these YouTubers. I had over 100,000 subs. Every one of my videos was made the same way. It was with my Galaxy S6 phone, right? And I had a thing that plugged into it, was like a little mixer.
Okay.
And so I'd have like a lapel mic, and then I'd have a mic on the whatever I was recording. Okay. And I edited everything on a thing called, I don't know the app anymore. I don't have it because now I use like PixArt and stuff, or for editing a picture. But it was like Studio Plus or something. So it was I paid $2.99 for the app.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So every video is made up until that point with just a phone, right? Okay. Now I get invited to go to GitCon where all these real YouTubers go. So I went and bought a Mac and some mics and a camera. And I went to the show, and I was literally like trying to teach myself how to use this stuff. In fact, there's a video I made at the show. It's hilarious. I put a tripod of the camera up, and I put a tripod with my phone up, and I recorded it with both. But I released the one with the phone because that's how, how to do it. But I didn't want the YouTubers to know I was just using a phone. Because I didn't know. In fact, what's funny is I didn't know that lighting was a thing. So I would just film all my videos in the morning because the sun would come through the window and make the room brighter. And I could make videos. So like I couldn't make a video any other time of the day. It only could be in the morning because
that's when the sun was up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when the sun was up. I'm like, and it's funny because I've had people, because people are fun. They're like, how do you not know this stuff? I'm like, why would I know this stuff? Well, I go, I literally repaired guitars for a living 6 days a week, right? 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. I'm repairing guitars. Obviously I'm proficient, but I don't know anything about camera lighting or anything, computing, editing, right?
I just learned about lighting last year.
Yeah. And I go, and so what's funny is now that story, I proudly tell it for one reason and one reason only, not to make fun of myself. That's just an extra bonus. The reason is at that point, the channel was 100%, what do you call it? Like financially independent. Like it was like, if you take the state of Arizona where I live in 2017 and you take my channel earnings for that year, it's above the median income in the state.
Wow.
Right. So you sit there and go, and remember, that's 100%. No companies. I didn't know what a sponsored video was. So no companies were paying me, $300 or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just YouTube revenue, AdSense revenue. And that's before I even started, now it's all fan funded throughout. But, and the reason I say that is that's the story I'll tell company. Look, man, you can just do it.
Right.
I mean, I just did it. I mean, like it's literally, you could just do it on your phone, right? And because companies will go, well, we need to build a studio, we need to get some cameras. I'm like, you could do that, or you could just do it, right? Just put it out there. I said, because what happens is at the end of the day, really what matters is they care about, they do care about video quality. It's not the same world it was a few years ago, but they care about, like Josh Scott's a perfect example. No one watches Josh Scott because his lighting is great. Right. No one's watching Josh Scott because they're like, man, 4K. Wow.
Right. It's the content.
It's the content. It's what he's saying. He's imparting knowledge. He's entertaining, and that's the draw. And then once he gets that dialed in, then you just dial in the rest.
And there's something to be said for just starting. I mean, I shot a ton of stuff on my phone too. I had this crazy idea that I failed at, where I was going to do 30 videos in 30 days back in 2020 actually. And then my whole area caught on fire, and that I bailed like 13 days in because I was on evac notice. But I was shooting all of that on my phone because I didn't, and a lot of that was like, that's how I learn. I learn by doing. I don't know anything about cameras. I don't know anything about this stuff. I don't know anything about lighting. I don't know anything about, I can play guitar a little bit. I know what sounds I like. I can mix a little bit. Like, let's make some videos, and they're not that great, but some people liked them. There's something to be said for learning by doing. And, the companies that I used to work with, a lot of companies like that too. I do a little bit less of that now, but one thing I remember sitting down multiple times with companies and explaining a strategy for social. And a bunch of times the response was, well, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah. Turns out it is. Yeah. It takes a lot of time. But then on the flip side of it too, and I've said this to people before, and this goes for a company, or if it's just somebody who thinks they might want to get started making content and seeing what happens. It's gross to say, but they're like, I don't have time to do that. And I'm like, what are you doing when you're going to the bathroom? They're like, I know. I'm scrolling my phone. Yeah, you could be like editing a video while you're doing that.
Making thumbnails.
You could be making thumbnails. You could be making memes. You could be doing all kinds of different things. Or at the very least, not just mindlessly scrolling, researching stuff. Like learning about things. It's just about, we all have these little moments throughout the day where we're mindlessly, and I still do it. I'm not saying I don't, but where we're mindlessly scrolling our phone for some reason.
Yeah.
Just try to reorient yourself around using that time to be effective instead of just doing whatever. And it's a hard shift. It's a hard shift to make, admittedly, but everyone has a few minutes to dedicate to bettering. If they want to do, if they have an urge to do stuff on the internet, there are opportunities out there. And it's just a good reminder, I think, to put out there once in a while.
Yeah. And now it's mandatory. I mean, you can't really operate a business without it in some degree.
Not a consumer-facing business, at least. Maybe a B2B thing, but not consumer-facing.
Yeah, so, I mean, I get it, but it's, like I said, the good part is it's a good gig. It's fun. I enjoy it. I'm sure you enjoy it.
I get to do this. This is a lot of fun. This is my favorite part of the day, is getting to have conversations with people like you. So. Yeah,
I what's funny is, like I said earlier, this is the weird thing for me is, cause when I do my live show every week, I do tell stories and stuff, but really it's to illustrate like why I'm thinking the way I am and stuff. It's always about guitar to me. So to me, it's always about guitar. So like what's funny is when somebody will say, hey, like you should come on a podcast and talk. And I go, oh, about what? And they're like, you. And I'm like, I don't, what the hell would we talk about? Like literally the only thing interesting in this screen right now is all the stuff behind me. This is the interesting stuff,
But you got a good story. Even if you don't realize it, you do have a good story. It's interesting.
I can actually check this out. This is crazy. I'm going to tell you something really crazy. The question, because whenever I do a podcast like this, one thing I like to do. So as you know, I have this, one of the things I also lucked out into is my weekly show, right? Like that was another totally like so I do the Friday QA thing. Every Friday I answer questions for a couple hours, which is just weird, right? It's a weird show to have on, right? And it, again, no plan, no thought put into it. I just did it. I had an hour before I picked up my daughter from school on Fridays. And so I go, I'll do a hour show, you know what I mean? And talk questions. So I start doing that. And now I do probably like you, I do bonus stuff for the patrons. So I'll do a deeper, dive on that. But what's funny is that one of the biggest fears, which is crazy to me, is like people super chat or whatever, and they can ask me anything and I'll answer anything. The only thing I don't answer is if somebody tells me something and I'm not clear to say that, I don't talk about that. Right.
Sure.
I give my opinions. Sometimes I have like a dragnet kind of policy, like the names in the have been changed, to protect the innocent. Like I'm not going to say who told me this thing. But so I do this. And what's funny about this is all these years, now I have 340 of these things, right? And they're 2 hours of wax. So just do the numbers, just nuts. Just like your show. The amount of hours you have as a catalog it's beyond insanity,
I don't even want to think about it. It's thousands. Yeah.
It's thousands, right? It's thousands. And I saw this thing on Joe Rogan once. Joe Rogan said, whether you hate me or like me, I've been on the air so long, you at least knew who I am. Right. Like he's like, you can't hide it. You can't have 1,000 hours of content and then hide who you really are. Right. It's just impossible. Right. It gets out. I find the same thing. And most of the questions, like I said, they're always about the guitars and stuff. And what's always interesting to me is all the things that people don't ask me, right? Like this, people are like, hey, you'll ask you like, how'd you get on YouTube? Right. And then, but what's funny is because YouTube has now become the, what do you call it? YouTube for me, right, has become the thing I'm known for, right? Obviously, right? I mean, how would you know me any other way? Because that no one asks like, why did you start a store? Right. How did you do that? Right. Like it's funny. The only people to ask me that is sometimes people will reach out personally through emails and say, hey, I'm thinking about opening a store. You have any insights on that? And it's kind of funny to me. What's crazy, the crazy story that most a lot of my customers in my store are super still in my life. Right. In fact, most of the feeds on my Friday show is like my customers from the store because they all know me for all those years. What's crazy now is, so when I started the store, I literally started in 30 days.
Whoa. What?
So this is the story. No one knows the story. So it's like, I'm going to give you like this crazy thing I'm about to tell you because it's crazy.
I'm ready.
So I basically, my wife and I have been married now 25 years. We've known each other since junior high. Okay. So we were poor. We've told this story many times. People know that we were poor. We were very poor. And like anybody, we kind of like pulled up on your bootstraps, right? We got, right? And got our first car, right? Kind of thing, right? Then eventually what happens is, I joined the Army. I was in the Army, all this stuff. My wife gets a good job. And I get out and then, I do school and then I get a good job. And we get really good jobs. Okay. And of course, two people with good jobs, you make good money, right? Not crazy money, but good money. The kind of like the money that most people in America hope they get to make one day. Have our son, first kid, right? We have the kind of cool corporate jobs where I love this story. My son and my daughter are 6 years apart. To give you a reference of this, my son's entire his entire birth was $25. It was a $25 copay to go to the doctor for them to say that you're pregnant. And then our insurance covered 100% of everything. Right.
Nice.
My daughter cost $2,500. Same insurance company, same company. That's how much insurance changed in 6 years. Right.
I believe it.
Was right. So with $2,500 in today's standard is like a penny to have a baby now. Right.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So here's what happened. I have this job and I have the weirdest job ever. I work for a Fortune 100 company. It's GM, GM company. Yeah. GM Financial. The finance
familiar.
Company. Yeah. The finance company. And I pretty much run all like risk management, telephony, which is like their dialing systems, reporting, right? I have this department. And I have the sweetest gig you could ever want. Right. So I work all the time, but it's a sweet gig. I decided to start a bass company. I'm really into bass. I'm a bass player. So I started building basses, and I'm selling a couple here and there, right? This is when Victor Wooten was huge and all those guys, the bass thing was really kicking up, late 90s, early 2000s. I started making some basses. And then I decide that I should do an import version of this bass, right? Okay. Because I'd sold maybe a dozen basses, but they were $3,000 a piece back then, right? These are expensive instruments that I was building out of my garage. So I'd work all day, come home, build a bass, right? basically I wire a bunch of money to some factory in China. I send them my designs. It was the dumbest idea ever. I buy a container full of basses. They're all defective.
Oh, geez.
And I work, literally I come home every day and I work from like 6 p.m. till like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Then I take a nap and then I get up and go back to work every day fixing them. That's how I became a repair guy. Right. I know the skill set, the skill set to build an instrument and the skill set to fix an instrument are two different skill sets.
Yes. Right. Definitely.
Repair is a solving a problem kind of concept, and building is really about, after design is done, it's just replication, right? How do you keep it consistently good? And obviously if I'm making 3 basses or 4 basses in a year, it's not very hard to keep them consistent, right? So I'm repairing all these basses. My wife quits the company to literally sell the basses. The basses are called McKnight, by the way. It's called a Zula bass. They're hard to find now, but if you see them, they're odd looking. So my wife's now selling the instruments full time, right? So that's her job now, right? She's literally raising our kids and she's shipping the instruments. We're selling them to stores, right?
Okay.
I would do it like on a weekend, I'd drive to a store and could go to California and drive to a couple stores, and they'd buy 6 or 7 instruments. And then I'd go back and I'd, take care of them and ship them out, or she'd ship everything. She'd do everything. So she's handling everything. So that's what happens. I have this bass business, and it's doing well. Okay. So what I mean doing well is, remember, I have a good job. I don't need anything. The company is doing the kind of money that if I didn't have a great corporate job, most people, that's all they would do.
Right.
Right. But I'm like, I'm not leaving I have a baby for $25. Right. Like, I got a 401k, I get bonuses. Right. And luckily for me, in my particular weird department, no one does what I do. So I don't really have somebody up my butt all the time. Right. Okay. So I have and they like me. The company likes me. And really good. So what happens is, this is the crazy part. We decide to go to Disneyland. I'm going to make it brief because it's going to be horrible what I'm going to say.
Okay, I'm ready. So, I'm ready. I'm prepping.
We decided to go to Disneyland, and I bought a brand new SUV. And for the story purposes, I'm going to leave all the main details out. Okay. So we buy this brand new vehicle, and we all go. It's my kids, my sister, and my Shauna's sister, my wife's sister, which I say my sister, you got to understand, we've been all friends since we were 12.
Yeah, I got it.
So it's okay. So we go, and her kids, us, we all go to Disneyland. Okay. And long story short, we're the car that you saw on the news when you saw the cars that had the defective tires that rolled over.
Oh no. One of those SUVs.
Yes. So what ends up happening is Shauna's sister, she doesn't make it. My son, he was ejected from the car like 70 feet. I find him, we give him CPR, they airlift him, right? Very long story short, he makes it, of course, which is good. We're like, it was just horrible, right? Horrible. So then what happens, this is the crazy part. Okay. Well, that is horrible,
that's pretty crazy.
Right? Yeah. It's nuts. Right. And like I broke my tailbone. I have this thing on my side that's weird. It's my rib. The cartilage doesn't heal because the only way to heal it is to immobilize it. And you can't immobilize it unless you stop breathing. Right. So like, I know it's been a long time. So it's even to this day, it's still like, I have pain from it. It's weird. So anyway, so we have this horrible thing. And then, you go through that, which is a horrible thing. And then those companies that caused the accident, they didn't even like fight. They were just like, yeah, this is what we're going to pay you. And it's basically like just out of one of those horrible movies where like, this is what she's worth. This is what this is worth. This is what, this is what we'll pay.
Woof,
and so my wife and I, there was a couple issues. One of the issues was my son was very small for his age. And so he was 7. And the way the law was written, one of the things that happened, the reason he was ejected was the codes on the restraints for kids was a little weird. And so long story short, my wife lobbied to have that fixed. Does it make sense? That was her thing, because if we got paid out this settlement, they seal all this stuff, right?
Right.
And then no one
can't
has
talk about it.
Right. Can't talk about it. And my wife was very determined that this needs to be fixed. This issue with how the car seats are and the booster seats are installed and all this stuff, and the way that they were constructing the seat belts and all this. So long story short, we decided not to take any funds. Right. So we didn't, and I'd be clear, it's just me and my wife, because obviously my wife's sister's kids, we wanted them, they received, settlement and stuff because they lost their mother and stuff like that. But we didn't take any money. And, which by the way is a weird thing to happen to you, because you're like, if you ever been presented in life with that moment where somebody's going to write you this check that basically, supposed to change your life, even though it's a horrible tragedy, it's a weird thing when you're like, no, go off. Excuse my language. Sorry. So this is where the story gets weird. So I have these bases. I'm still doing this. My wife's still handling this stuff. And the company I'm going, obviously is amazing. They paid for everything. My company paid for everything. Even the stuff they didn't have to pay for. They step up. They pay for everything. And so what happens is I go to see, I guess, a shrink, right? That's where you go, right? That's the best way to put it. You're supposed to go see a shrink. And the shrink goes, basically, they want to put me on drugs, right? Because that's just like, that's the way,
that was
right?
the go-to at the time, right?
That's the go-to, right? Like, hey, you know what? You have, you're depressed or whatever your deal is, and you need drugs. And then they're like, oh, and you should go on disability, right? And this is what's crazy. I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know what to do. So, and the company was so good to me, and the employees were so good to me, actually made everything worse. I'd go to work every day, and I'd go to get a cup of coffee, and people would come up to me and be like, man, we're sorry. What happened? And I'm like, you're like, it's been months. I'm
trying not to think about it right now.
I'm just trying to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
So one day, to do some retail therapy, I went to a music store. And I walked in and I decided I saw this used Warwick bass, right? This used Warwick bass is there. And I asked the guy at the counter, and you can't make this stuff up. The guys behind the counter, two guys behind the counter, are coloring in coloring books. Okay. They're like coloring, right? And I'm like, hey, I want to get this bass. How much is it? And they're like, oh, I think it's $1,600. And I'm like, oh, okay. I go, is there, any room on that? You know what I mean? Because, it's instinctive, right? Yeah. And all I'm doing, I'm in a trance, actually, believe it or not. I'm just trying to just trying to have a normal day, right? I pick up the bass, I play it. They go, no deals, no nothing. So I walk up to the counter, and this guy is he's checking out an amp, and he's got a question. The guy behind the counter is very dismissive, but then gives him like the wrong answer. I just politely like, hey man, just so you know, I think it's like a 5-watt tube amp. So if you crank it, the clean channel is going to probably stay clean until halfway, and then it'll break up. The guy then looks at me and corrects me and goes, hey man, I'm in a band. He actually says this, like, I'm in a band, and I'm just like, and I'm, so I buy the bass, I leave. I don't think anything because I'm in a trance kind of in my life. The next day, my wife and I go to the mall, and we walk in a store, and we're in the store, and my wife decides to buy a blouse or something. And when I walk in the store, there's a girl, and she's like, and I know this sounds like I feel like old timey now. There's a woman, there's a lady, right? I shouldn't say girl, hey, but they are teenagers, right? But anyways, there's a girl, and she's folding. One's folding the clothes, the other one's like wiping the counter or whatever they're doing, right? Organizing the display. My wife goes in, she's looking at blouses. One of the girls runs up, she's like, hey, is there anything we can help you with? My wife's like, oh, I'm thinking about this blouse, and she's like, well, I can grab a couple and bring them to the changing room for you. My wife goes to the changing room. she brings her the blouses, hands them over. My wife tries them all. My wife picks one. They tell her if there's anything else. No. And they go, hey, just so you know, we're having a discount on these things on the counter. If you want to get one, they're 20% off. My wife's like, okay, I'll take one of those. And they're like, oh, here's a card. If you come back to the store, right, you'll get a discount. And my wife goes, okay. She gets all this stuff. We walk out. I am carrying the bag. We walk down the middle of the mall. I look at my wife and I go, what did that blouse cost? She goes, $25. I said, you spent $2,500 or $25. You said, you just had an amazing experience, right? You just had an amazing experience. I said, I bought a $1,600 bass yesterday and the guys were coloring color books and being jerks.
It was a terrible experience, really.
And I said, I know I like my job. I said, I think I'm going to open a music store, a guitar shop. Mm-hmm. And my wife's like, all right. So we went home that day and I just started looking up retail spots. And within 30 days, I had opened a store.
Wow.
I just did it. And funny story, I gave notice to my company, but they asked me to stay. Like I said, they were a good company, and I'll never say anything bad about them. They asked me to stay. They asked me to give them 6 months. So I would, ironically, it's a music store, right? So I'm like, well, I can't do that. I got to be in my business. Like, well, if you could work every day till noon, just do half days here. So I would get up every day, go to my real job, the job, work till noon, then noon, go to the store because the store was only been open for 2 hours, right? So my wife, actually, Shauna was never going to work the store. The only reason she ever worked the store was she would just cover the first 2 hours for me every day.
Oh, okay.
Right. So but here's what happened. My company, my position was so specialized. They actually came to me and said, we'll pay you full salary if you just keep working for half days for a year.
You're like,
yeah. And so
okay.
You're like, all right. So that's what happened was she would just work every day and then she would just stay. Right. And then, and that's how I built the store. That's how I did it. That's the whole reasoning. That's the whole logic. Right. So it's a really strange, so that's why I say, when I say like, oh, I didn't know if I wanted to do YouTube and stuff, to me, believe it or not, the store was repairing guitars. The store, was therapy. And then this is the crazy part. I know I keep saying that. I apologize for this crazy part.
There's a lot of crazy parts.
There's a lot of crazy parts. Mm-hmm. The bass guitars, the reason I stopped making instruments was because my neighbors, I called the store McKnight Guitar Company. The basses were called McKnight, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I'm naive. So what would happen was everyone would tell me like, oh, how is your shop doing that sells your basses? And I said, oh, no, it's a real music store. I do the basses, and then also I have a music store.
Right.
And everybody would keep saying that to me. So one day I told Shauna, I go, we're getting rid of the basses. And she's like, what? I go, yeah, because I go, no one knows we have a store. They think it's like a showroom for the basses. I don't know why I thought that, because obviously, like, what do my neighbors know? They didn't know anything.
Right.
So I sold off all the inventory of the basses we had, and I just dissolved the website and all that stuff and stopped doing the basses. That's where they went away. And then because I was like, oh, we're just going to do the store. So YouTube actually became another therapy thing for me. See what I'm saying? That's why when I said I had the store, because I just wanted to be around music all the time. That was kind of my thought process. I'm like, they're telling me, you should take something for your depression or whatever, and you should stop working. And I'm like, well, if you're going to do that, why don't you just do what you love? Mm-hmm. Like, I liked my job because they were good to me and it was a good paying job. And, it is rewarding as a job, right? Work.
But it wasn't your passion.
Yeah. Work is rewarding. So of course it's good. It provides a home for your kids and it does all the stuff that you needed to do. It's good. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to just do this. So what's funny about that is, if you know that part, which very few people to nobody know, if you know that part, then 2017 actually makes a lot more sense, because all I'm doing, the store was already crazy. See, crazy, like quitting my store and doing YouTube still is not as crazy as, You know what I mean?
Quitting the corporate job.
Yeah, corporate job that I love, because most people, if you were to tell them something as simple as I quit my corporate job and started my own business, they're like, of course, you hated your job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to start a business. I'm like, no, I love my job. The people there were amazing, and the company was great, and they were good to us. You know, they're good to me. And like I said, my job was cool, but it just, at my mental state at that time, I just needed to do something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did the store, and so at some point, though, this is where it changed. This is where YouTube became the liberation for me. The one thing about the store that's the negative, there's only the one negative about the store, is if you do the timeline of this. So I do this, it's like 2005, right?
Okay. Yep.
So
I see where this is going.
So I have the store. The store does so well. So, the store does so well that when we opened the store, it was 1,400 square feet. By the end of 2006, we moved to 3,400 square feet in the same shopping center. We double the size of the store. We go from 3 lesson rooms to 12.
Mm-hmm.
We, right? We obviously, because we were killing it, right? We're killing it. We had a lot of passion that came through. And then the recession comes.
Mm-hmm. 2008. And it was just the pounding. And it wasn't the financial part of the recession wasn't a financial problem. I mean, it was. The problem was the passion I had was, you would come in my store and I would talk, about a guitar with you, and, for hours. I didn't care, right? I didn't care what it took to make you happy, because I just enjoyed being there. Mm-hmm.
The recession really taught us, like, now we got to sell guitars for $99. Now we got to sell $199 guitars. This is what customers buy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, it's a lot. Like, I used to have a joke in the store that I would tell people, customers would come in and they look at a $99 acoustic and they go, tell me about this acoustic. I'm like, okay, what do you want to know? And my joke is, I would joke, and like I said, my personality is a little weird. I'd say, well, they'd make it cheaper, but they haven't figured out how to. Like, what do you want to know, right? Like, I'm like, it's wood, right? And shaped like a guitar. It'll get you into playing guitar. You know what I mean?
But not much more than that.
Yeah. So, like I said, it was it's a crazy thing. And then, like I said, so when YouTube came, it was just as nuts as the first decision, where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this then, because this is what I'll do to hang out and talk about guitars and be around guitars. And this has been the better calculation for me, because the one thing that sucked about the store environment was, over time, the store, a business becomes a business, which means less people want to talk to you about how great guitars are, and more people want to talk to you about what discount you'll give them.
Right.
And it's not that I had a problem with giving people discounts. I could care less, actually. That was the most unexciting thing to talk about.
Yeah. Right. Do you think some of that comes with the type of store? I mean, I didn't ever go there, so I'm kind of just inferring this from what you've told me, that like having the lessons component, I am assuming, brings in more people who are interested in $99 and $199 guitars, because they're just starting out. If it was like a higher end focus, you think it might have been easier to keep more passion for, or am I wrong there?
So here's what's wacky. So, and this is how the YouTube channel business model. My YouTube channel is an exact copy of my store business model. It's the thing I knew, so I duplicated it. Right.
Okay.
What happened in the store was, we would carry everything guitar, right? So we carried Paul Reed Smith, we carried Fender Custom Shop, Gretsch, everything guitar. So down from, $99 all the way up to $3,000-$4,000 at the time. Mm-hmm. And for a while we didn't carry any, so I didn't carry any Squier, even though it was a Fender deal. I didn't carry Squier for 3.5 years, until Fender basically came and just told me I'm carrying Squier.
Right.
Now, by the way, they didn't just say it like that. They said, look, there's a dealer down the road and they want Fender, and we can't give it to them because you're a dealer, because it's territorial. And they go, but you don't have Squier, so we're going to give them Squier. So I had to make the decision to, so I got Squier so that that dealer wouldn't have Squier, right?
Right.
So here's what's interesting about this. What we used to do, the first thing I did in the store that was wacky was, every guitar came with free lessons.
Okay.
Right. That's how we would beef. That's how we would beef up the the store, right? Or the Lesson Academy. So what we did with the Lesson Academy, we ran it like a dating service.
Okay.
So what would happen is you weren't allowed to talk to the teachers. Okay. This got a lot of pushback for years, but it eventually just became like so normalized. So you would come into our store right now and you would go, hey, I want to get guitar lessons. And I'd go, great. And we would ask you all these questions.
Mm-hmm.
And based on those questions, we would go, okay, this is the teacher for you. And a lot of people like you would probably go, well, can I see some of their resumes? Can I see all the teachers? And we're like, well, that's not how it kind of works. How it works is we just tell you, like, it's like a dating service. We're going to put you with the teacher that we think best suits your needs. But here's the great part. You get to lesson with them. And if it doesn't work out, we'll transfer you to another teacher. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, and we won't charge you again, right? Like we feel confident that we're going to get this going, right? The other thing that would happen is that's great is because you have a relationship with your teacher, the only relationship you had with your teacher was your guitar relationship, not a money relationship. You didn't pay the teacher, you paid us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You didn't cancel with the teacher, you canceled with us,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is great because what would happen is sometimes you come out and go, look, man, I've been going to lessons for him for a few years and he's been great, but I'm just, I'm not, like I'm in a lull, something's happening. Let's go ahead and move you to another teacher. And you would go, well, I don't want Dave. We're like, don't worry about Dave. As soon as we move you to another teacher, we're filling your spot with Dave right now. So Dave's fine, right? This is how we want to do it because here's why it's important to us. It's important because and if you left, this actually adds to that. And if you left, we would ask you kindly, like, could you fill out an exit survey? We'll send it to you in email. Tell us about, everything. How was your experience? How was the teacher? Right. One of my favorite things, because Sean would hire all the teachers, but I would be part of the hiring process. We would have teachers, like we'd have student teachers, what we call them. So there would be teachers that would be newer, like a kid who's 20 years old, right?
Right.
And we would go, okay, so we're going to hire you. You have to shadow the tenured teachers, right? Okay. And we would pay for that. So they would get lessons with the other tenured teachers and we'd pay for that. And what I learned from this is how the dating thing would crazy. What we would learn is some of our best teachers that were amazing players, they hated beginners, but they liked money.
Oh, okay.
Right? Okay. So you would come in and go, hey, I want to learn guitar. This guy literally can play like Eric Johnson, right? And knows all music theory and has got a Berkeley, degree. He doesn't want to teach you Iron Man.
Right.
Right. So what we would do is go, we're going to give you to this kid. And I used to use this analogy all the time, not to the customer, but to the teacher. I go, you're like a puppy. You pee on the floor. You're horrible, but you're happy to see me. And that's all that matters. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, so you come every week and that kid is super excited to teach you your song. Right. Mm-hmm. He's super excited. He's super excited to have a job that isn't minimum wage. He's super excited to have, to do something he loves, which is the music business. He's super excited that he could teach you things, right? And right. And again, part of the connection thing would be like age things. Sometimes older guys didn't want to be with the younger guys, right, for mm-hmm. lessons because, so we'd have, all kinds of adjustments for that. But we'd also monitor. So like, hey, look, we go to you, Blake, one day. We would stop you. We'd be coming out of a lesson and go, hey, Blake, can I talk to you for a minute? Hey, you've been with this teacher now for 4 months. We'd like to move you to a higher level teacher. We're not going to charge you for next lesson. Could you give it a try? Right. Because the teachers would give us Shauna like little reports, little notes and stuff saying, hey, he's really coming along fast. You know what I mean? You don't want to be teaching somebody on your own level kind of thing. Right.
Right.
Okay. And so one of the things that blew at the time was really weird, blew people's minds was we would give away lessons with every guitar. The whole concept was we would actually joke, and I'm not wearing it. The Know Your Gear logo, mm-hmm. the dude plus the guitar equals guitar, that's from our store.
Oh, okay. Got you.
The original slogan underneath that thing was McKnight Guitar Company makes guitar players, not guitar owners.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. And the reason is because a guy would come in and this actually happened with Bert, the PRS rep. Guy comes in the store. I'm talking to him. He buys a custom 24 core, $2,800 back then. And I said, it comes with a month of lessons. And he's like, okay. And I said, yeah. So it's, and by the way, if you didn't want your month of lessons, it was a gift card. You could give it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. right? But we would say, hey, take it, right? But remember, we're in the sales business of selling the lesson. So what we would say is, well, if you want to give this away as a gift card, go ahead, give it away a gift card. How about you just take one lesson and we won't take it off your gift card? If you like the lesson, use the rest of the gift card. If you don't like the lesson, don't need it, give the gift card away.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's funny. The guy leaves, he signs up, he leaves. Bert, the rep, goes, why do you give a guy with a $3,000 guitar lessons? And I go, that guy works at Intel down the street. He makes 6 figures and he's been playing guitar for 4 months. He doesn't know how to play at all. This is his fourth high-end guitar he's bought. He doesn't even know how to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because musicians by nature will put money into pedals, guitars, and amps before they put it into education, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Guilty.
We're all guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So we were very determined at that time, like, let's get them into lessons, right? But here's the logic behind it. That's a good outcome. You have guitar players now, right? You know, people that are playing music, and the more they play, the more they'll buy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was our focus. The business model, the way the YouTube thing copies it is, what I also learned was I don't have to, because I have this residual income coming in every month from these students, right? And it's all I have to do is make sure they're taken care of.
Right.
Okay. So there's no incentive to lie to them about a guitar. There's no incentive to sell them a cable they don't need. There's no incentive to do anything, because if I piss them off, I lose the gravy chain, which is the lessons.
Right.
Right. So everything becomes like hey, if a guy comes up to me and says, does my guitar need a full setup? If it didn't, lying to him could cost me the student revenue, right?
Mm-hmm. Thousands of dollars, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So no, it doesn't. Or, hey, yeah, let me just do a quick adjustment. Hey, you know what? Take a loaner guitar in your lesson room. When you come out, this will be ready. No charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody walks off the street. I do a quick, we call it sweethearting, right? I sweetheart them, a quick little setup. You know, what do I get out of that? Maybe a potential customer, but a student in the room, you already know it's thousands of dollars that are right. And at the worst case, I guess they've already given me hundreds of dollars. So, right. And they might
throwing
come back.
them a bone is no big deal. Yeah.
Throwing a bone.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that was great about it is because the teachers didn't run the finance side. It allowed Sean to do stuff like when students would leave. Let's say you leave, you're like, hey, I'm burnt out, taking a break. We'd let you, go for a few months. Sean would send you a card in the mail saying, hey, Blake, we miss you. Here's 20% off if you want to come back to lessons, right? Pick any teacher you want, right? Right? Because the teachers now, kind of thing.
Right.
So when I was on YouTube, I kind of said, okay, we need the same system, right? Because otherwise, here's what's going to happen. How do you make money? Well, I make money off of YouTube, which is clicks, right? That's a good, bad thing, as you know,
yes.
right? Because one, you can't forecast it, but two, well, clicks are easier when you're crappy, right? You say crappier things, you do crappier things, crappier titles, right? You're twice as viral negative as positive. It's just a fact of the internet.
100%. It's an easy hack. You want a YouTube hack? Be negative.
Yeah,
you'll get way more attention.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not interested in that personally, but that's a hack for sure.
Yeah. There's everybody knows, like, dude, everybody will get clicks if I do a video like, I'm leaving YouTube. Right. Like literally, like all you got to do is say something, right? Like, oh, this company screwed me over. Bam, clicks. Right. So I'm like, okay, so you need to be able to make content and have revenue, but not worry or, not focus on the thing that drives it. Because the thing that drives it's kind of negative. Right.
Right.
Same thing with the guitar store. We were like, we don't want to just sell guitars and sell things to get people in and out the door. You know what I mean? As a churn and burn kind of business, right? We want them to be a community. Okay. So then lessons, what I decided was for me, lessons was like the patron members, right? So I would say, okay, this is the support system, right? I'll give you extra benefits, right? Extra lessons, extra videos, extra things, all the things that patrons get, right? But you have this community and you draw on them and you say, hey, look, if you support what I do, which in my case, 45% of my revenue is basically my members. There's 1,000 members. So it's, it's members and patrons. They divide it up now between YouTube and Patreon.
Right.
So now I'm beholden to like the students again, right? If I make that clickbaity video, I mean, I've seen it in real time. I've done a video and I go, well, maybe this is fine. And then all of a sudden I go, wow, I lost 11 patrons. I don't think it was fine.
They didn't like that, right?
They didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things, same thing with my business at the store, right? It's like if the students became the mainstay, so that's what you're trying to actively, take care of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on YouTube, I have companies. Obviously, companies will sponsor videos, pay for things, send product. You have your patron system, and then you have YouTube, the way YouTube pays you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how the store was. I had repairs, I had lessons, and then I had retail, right?
Gotcha.
And what's nice is that at any given time, one might be outperforming the others. But because you have this multiple streams of revenue, no one thing can hold you by the neck.
Right.
Right. So like retail is a good example of, in my world, like let's say Fender comes to me. I feel like I'm picking on Fender a lot today, but they're just a big company. I like bigger companies to pick on because, you punch up, right? Kind of thing. Right. So a company comes to me and goes, we want you to clear out these and we need you as a dealer to buy this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm thinking is, yeah, but I'm going to sell this stuff to my students.
Right.
And that's a bad idea.
Because
right?
I don't like this that well or whatever. I don't want to force it on them, etc. Yeah.
Right. So like, for instance, I've had this issue now, like just recently, literally we're going through one right now where a company reaches out, what do they call it? Integration, right? Where they want you to do the integration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they threw an insane number, right? When they say insane, because you're used to the, when you hear in the YouTube world, it's like hundreds of dollars. When you hear thousands, you're like, thousands? Right?
You're like,
that's not
wait, for one video? Huh?
What?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
The problem is that now I have to factor in, it's so easy to go, oh yeah, well, half my audience or 80% of the audience doesn't even subscribe. So I guess whatever happens to them, right? But see, in my brain, just like my store, I think, yeah, but my members, right? The students, if they buy this product, if they have an issue with it, right? It's not even just the ethics. Ethics are a tough thing, because you're trying to always be ethical. Mm-hmm. But also now you have an ethical incentive and a financial incentive. You're like, it's not, oh man, I lost out on thousands. It's no, I could have lost out on thousands. Mm-hmm. Because if the members leave because I do this video about this, video game, because it's always a video game company.
Sure, always.
Yeah, so it's always like, read this thing, and I'm like, they're gonna know it's just an ad, and they're gonna know it's phony, and they know it. And sadly enough, I don't play video games, so everybody knows it.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's the greatest game ever that I've never played. Yeah,
yeah, and I would love to be. I've seen some YouTubers pull it off, but at my level, they don't give me that kind of rope, which is that. I could do a video where I'm like, I don't play video games, but this company's going to pay me, so I'm going to talk about it, and just be funny and stuff. But these companies, they don't have scripts. I love when everybody goes, I don't read scripts. Most companies don't have scripts. They just have bullet points, and then they want to see the video before it goes out. Yes. Well, that's a script as far as I'm concerned, right?
Mostly, yeah.
If they're going to tell you the couple things you have to cover, but also make sure that you can't say anything they don't like. Mm-hmm. It's not as same as a script, but it's still going to be disingenuous, right?
Right.
So like I said, when I made YouTube, that's what I said. I came out with the same strategy. I said, okay, you can support me if you want. If you support me, here's what I'll do, right? Just like the students. And by the way, the store, the students became this great thing where, like, here's a crazy story that I like. Line 6. I used to hate Line 6. I have no idea why I hated them. I hated them so much for no reason. Not the company, just the product, right? Like the rep would come to your store and he'd be like, this sounds like a Marshall. This sounds like a Fender. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds like that sounds bright. That sounds muddy. Like, who cares? The students would every week be like, you guys should carry Line 6. And I'm like, nah. Right. And then the problem is, after a while, when a couple students say it to you, you're like, okay, well, these are the people paying the light bill. They want Line 6. So I had to call Line 6 and go, yeah, I think I want to carry Line 6. And we carried Line 6. And we sold so much Line 6. Mm-hmm. It was insane. It would just sell like water, right? Especially at the heyday of it, right?
Sure.
And again, you're like, wait a minute. Here's this community of people that are paying me, and they're asking me to help them give me more money, right? To pay me, right? And so, yeah, so like I said, that's why I like that business model. I carried it over. Mm-hmm. So, and it works good. I like it.
It also it's it gives you like easy accountability, right? You have a very strong incentive to perform in the way that you like to perform, for lack of a better word.
Yes. Yes. And it makes, like I said, it makes sense to me. And I think what's funny about this now is this is what's great about podcasts, right? What's funny about the podcast world has changed so much because now we're in long form content.
Yeah.
And these are the discussions we have. I'm the first to say I'm an idiot. I am super idiot. I have no intelligent things to say. I have experience. I'm old. So, I mean, Jesus, if I didn't have experience, it'd be depressing, right? Like everything, when people ask me a question, I give them the answer isn't like, I'm smart, you should listen to me. It's like, oh, I did what you're about to do. And this is what happened. I've seen this
before.
Yeah. I did this, or worse. I'm like, I did what you're about to do. I did it 7 times before I figured out to do it or not to do it. Right. Do with that what you will. And but what's nice now is videos, it's always so polished and perfect, right? Everybody's a genius, right?
Right.
And that's why I loved this format. Just like I talked about how that's why I love talking about all the crappy, stupid things I did. Because I think when people watch this stuff or listen to stuff, they don't want to hear me go, oh, and that's how I got to 300,000 subscribers. And that's when, so-and-so gave me this free guitar. Like, who cares about that, right? What you really want to know is, what did you screw up? What did you do wrong, right? How did you learn from it? Here's a funny thing. Again, here's something I learned on YouTube. And I think it's so obvious that it can help. I swear to God, all your viewers, not even 1%. is going to go, oh, wow, that's great advice. The rest are going to go, how did you not know this, you idiot?
All right, I'm ready.
When I started doing YouTube videos, I learned to edit. Okay. As my editing got better, the comments about my guitar playing changed from, wow, you've gotten a lot better at guitar. And I get uncomfortable with that statement. I get it so much now. Like, wow, Phil, your guitar playing has really come a long way. And I'm like, no, I used to not know you edit out your bad. I didn't edit anything out. I would just play I would literally go, you need to hear this amp. Here's me playing. I messed up. That's just the clip I made. That's the clip that's in the video.
Right.
It didn't occur to me like I could record 5 clips and then pick the best one. Right. So in fact, here's this funny, I didn't even know, there's videos of me now. Like if you watch the old videos, I was always in full frame. So everything is just a disaster. Now there's a clip of the close up of the guitar and I play something beautiful and it's amazing. I'm not really, that's probably overstating that.
But it's better.
Better.
Yeah.
People don't understand, that literally is probably so many takes that I finally said, I can't even do it in this. I'll come back to it later. And then I screen grab close in, right? And so what's funny about that is that's why I love this format. Like I said, my QA format, this podcast format, discussion format is that, I mean, there's a few dudes like Sean Tubbs, Pete Thorne, because you've hung out with these guys. So, these guys are on, right? Oh, yeah. Jalen or Jay's on. Those guys don't have an off note, right?
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, right? They pick up, you hand them a guitar, and they're going to play exactly like they play. They're 99% dialed in all the time. Although I can tell you, I can tell you, right? You can tell the same thing. I can tell you though, 90% of the channels that I know, you're just hearing the best of their playing edited.
Yes, or at least the one where they just like, oh, I didn't flub any notes on that one. We'll use that one.
Yeah, or pieces of it. Right? Because the better they are at editing, the less you can even detect that it's happening, or the more they're going to go, okay, well, this intro I play it right, this middle part I play better. So just like I'm making it a record, they put it together, right? And I go, and sometimes when I would do these videos, I'd go, well, do you tell people? By the way, this is the best clips. This is my best playing clips, right? And like everybody else, you go, no, because, you're just making a video.
Right. You're not trying. I mean, it'd be one thing if you were auditioning for a band, right? And even then, though, you're still probably going to send in your best.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's going to be the best take. It's the best take every time. And what's funny is I used to, and I would just think like if I played something wrong, I'd be like, well, they're just listening to the amp. They don't really care about what I do. They don't care, right? Mm-hmm. And then they would go, that amp sucks. Your playing's horrible. And I'd be like, oh. And then I slowly started realizing over time, like, well, they say the amp sucks when my playing's horrible. Like, oh, I'm like, how do you not? Because in my brain, I was like, wait a minute, those are two separate things, right? Mm-hmm. What I play and how the product sounds are two different things. But all of a sudden I was like, or if I would, sometimes sometimes I don't give opinion in the video, right? I just talk about it.
Here's what it sounds like.
Right, yeah. Right. And they'll go, oh, that sounded amazing. And I'm like, yeah. It's because the playing was pretty on tight. My playing was locked in that particular clip. So to you, the product sounds good because the playing was good. And then slowly over time, you learn that's how a lot of people think. So you go, okay, well then we need to.
Well, it's like one of those things. You mentioned Pete Thorne, and he's a perfect example. Oh, Sean Tubbs and Jay, all of those guys too. The criticism you will hear about Pete Thorne is he makes everything sound incredible. So I don't actually know. And it's like, yeah, because he's that good. He could make a old Epiphone that's been sitting out in the Amazon rainforest, like just sing because he's that good.
Yes.
And so I'm not criticizing him that way at all, but I understand like, yeah, it is kind of hard when Pete plays something. It always sounds, he's also good at recording.
Yes.
He's got the techniques down. He is that guy. He is incredible at what he does. And so, yeah, every product he demos sounds like him.
Yes. Yeah. And there's something really good about that because now you can see what the full potential of that product is. Yes, right.
Exactly.
You know what it. Yeah. You're like, okay, I know what it can do. And that's why I used to not care. I used to be like, who cares if I flub up here and there? Like ultimately, this is the real man's review, right? The real person's review. This is gonna be a real person's review. And it's like I said, it kind of would crack me up. Over time, you start learning, like, oh, okay, there's certain things though that the audience, that the viewers don't want. And then that's what's great. I go, well, for the ones that care, we'll have discussion like this, mm-hmm. right? And the ones that care deeper into more just the, what's going, the behind the scenes, all this stuff, they'll learn. And that's why I like having these kind of more frank discussions about the behind the scenes. Yeah, all of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like understanding the why somebody does the thing they do.
Yeah. Well, man, we've been going for almost 2 hours, which is great. And I'm hoping we can maybe still get in a few minutes for the patrons.
Sure.
But I do got the classic questions that I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. But before I do that, I'd like to give you the floor to plug anything you want to plug, shout out anybody you want to shout out. You're talking to a few thousand people right now, but you're used to doing that. But a lot of the guests aren't. But you can say anything you want to say to these people right now.
So I don't know. I'm going to be doing I never had anything to plug. I'll plug something now.
Cool.
I'm in January 27th. I'm going to be doing a clinic at Kiesel's factory they're going to open up the factory and let people see it.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And they're going to have all kinds of artists play and stuff. And they asked me to come and do a clinic to basically what we just did here. Kind of like mm-hmm. talk about, to be honest with you, they love this idea, so they liked my idea, which is it's going to be a free-form clinic. You want to talk about guitar repair, you want to talk about the industry behind the scenes, you want me to tell you the secrets about Kiesel that they don't want you to know, right? Like it's just like the show. You ask a question, and I'll just give you the answer, right? And I'll mm-hmm. just hope that you ask questions that don't make me embarrassed, or get me in trouble. But and so it'd be fun. So that's the only thing I'll plug because I'm excited about that. It's I think
that's very cool. That's right. Is that right before NAMM? My dates
it's the Saturday of NAMM. So I think what their plan. I know what it is. I shouldn't say think. Kiesel used to go to NAMM, right?
Yes,
and build a booth, and it costs a lot of money, right? And Jeff, I guess, decided, like, hey, we're 60, they're not even 60, like 50 minutes from NAMM, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, you know what? We'll just have Kiesel Day, it's basically they're just doing it like what PRS event used to be, right?
Right.
They're gonna have artists out, they'll have some food trucks out, they're gonna give you tours of the factory. And so if you're in town for NAMM and you're thinking, I don't want to be on the busiest day at NAMM on Saturday, you can just drive on down and go to the Kiesel thing and hang out and check out Kiesels and talk to, people.
Very cool. Well, I wish I could say I'll see you there, but I won't. I'll be stuck at a booth going, hi, everybody. How's it going? But but that's okay. That's fine. Yeah. That sounds like a lot of fun, though. I wish I could be there, but hopefully I'll see you at some other point.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, the final questions. First one, I'm going to be curious to get your take on this. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
So without a doubt, it's the EQ pedal.
Okay.
I did a video with Tim Pierce. He asked me to do a video with him. And he's like, can we do a video together? What we should do about it? And I said, well, you're one of the greatest studio musicians of our time. Yeah, ever. And I said, I have a theory. And my theory is that if you take an EQ pedal with you anywhere, like literally you could solve, it's like literally, it's a Swiss Army knife of solving sound problems.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And then he said, you're absolutely right. We did the video together. Cause I go, I literally can fix anything with an EQ pedal, right? Put in the effects of an amp, change it, right? Use it as a boost pedal, use it to fix an acoustic. I did a video, one of my favorite videos I ever did. It was why I think the Boss acoustic pedal is great, but it's missing something. And it's when you take the acoustic pedal from Boss and you put the EQ pedal with it,
then you got it.
It's huge, right? So I'm a huge Boss EQ. But by the way, any EQ pedal is fine, right? I just like the Boss one because it's durable, and I had one since I was 19. So so when people interject like there's better quality ones, whatever, I'm sure there is, but
Boss. Oh no, I'm a big Boss fan, so that's why.
Me too. Huge. That's why it's tough because if you said what's my favorite 10, I could just rattle off 10, the next 9, but. EQ is my favorite.
Nice. That's not a common one, but
what's your favorite one?
It varies a little bit depending on my mood. I just did a thing on the HM2 yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
It's a good pedal.
It's a lot of fun. It's gross in all the right ways. But that's probably not my favorite. I waffle between the flanger, and the good old DS1. You know?
Of course.
Just don't put the tone control above noon and you'll be happy. But yeah, so that's probably what it is right now. I don't know. It definitely varies a little bit, but right now I'll say the BF2 flangers because it's cool. I like that thing.
I mentioned that I was poor when I was a kid. Boss pedals to me are boutique pedals. Like only the coolest of cool rich kids and pro musicians had Boss.
Gotcha.
Right. I love this. I tell everybody this. Boss pedals to me are Transformer toys, and like DOD was GoBots. Like, and if you had GoBots, you were lucky, right? Like I had swap meet copies of GoBots, right? So like I had Rock Tech, right? Like it was like I remember like this is how sad it is. Before I even knew anything about sound, I used to think pedals, the quality of pedals, was just like if you got out of plastic boxes to metal boxes, then you definitely
that's better. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I just wanted to own pedals that weren't. In fact, my first pedals were all plastic Aria Pro pedals by the company Aria Pro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you could buy. I did. I bought 4 Aria Pro, brand new 4 Aria Pro pedals for the price of 1 Boss pedal.
Yeah, that makes sense. That pencils.
Yeah, because I was in Tucson, Arizona. The music stores would charge retail for Boss, which is more than they are now.
That's crazy.
A Metal Zone in 1990, Metal Zone was $119 at the local music store, which was full retail.
Real?
Was full retail. Well, remember, I was a kid. I didn't know you're supposed to go in there and be like, "I'll give you $89." Like I didn't know. Like you knew to haggle, but the stores would set retail. And then one day, like for me, it would happen for years. Years would go by, but then one day you're in the store and some old guy would be like, "Yeah, I'll give you $79." And I'm like, "Okay," and I'm like, you could do that this whole time?
That's a thing?
That's a thing? Like, you don't have to pay the crazy sticker price? Like, what? So Boss to me was boutique. So like, my first Boss pedal was a Metal Zone, like a lot of people, on layaway. Took 3 months.
Dude, layaway. I like me some layaway.
Yeah.
All right, man. Final question. Here we go.
Okay.
What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, so pizza to me is about the drink choice. So,
okay.
So here's how pizza goes. If I'm going Coca-Cola, then it's going to be classic. To me, classic pizza is like red sauce, pepperoni, sausage, green bell peppers, black olives, and mushrooms. Kind of the standard like Pizza Hut, everything on it kind of pizza.
Yeah, combination type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's how I go. If I go wine, right? Oh, then it's just cheese pizza, but it's vodka sauce.
Okay.
With mozzarella, right? Light flavor. That way you're right. I don't know why I'd be drinking wine with pizza, but that's like I go mellow.
I love wine with pizza.
Yeah.
It's underrated.
Yeah. So it's like the wine and pizza. Beer and pizza, it's going to be pepperoni and cheese. Because I don't want complicated flavors with the beer, right? And also, if it's beer and pizza, even though I'm a big guy and you'd think I'd be eating the whole pizza and the beers, then it's just this, I'm sliding toppings off, right? Like I'm peeling just the cheese, So to me, that when you put too many toppings on the pizza, if you try to peel, what I'm talking about? Just like slide the cheese slice, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? I'm trying to slide. Yeah. So you got to go carb free, right? Because your beer is all the carbs. So I'm trying to maximize my beer and pizza experience. So to me, it's just solid pieces of cheese and pepperoni. So I
got you.
That'd be my. So to me, it's connected to the drink choice.
I see that. I've never heard anybody put it that way, but I'm actually on board with all of those combos. Makes sense to me. I get that. I don't really drink pop, like hardly ever, but if I was going to, I'd want it with the classic Coke with that pizza. That sounds great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So because I know you're a pizza fanatic.
I am.
Yes. And you only eat pizza, right? Something like that. Pretty much.
No, not at all. I wish I could get away with that. No, that's become kind of the meme, right? But I actually eat way healthier than people probably think. I just don't post any of that because it's boring.
Yeah, so of course.
I'm a foodie. I love all kinds of different foods and cuisines, and pizza is one that I really love. But I actually eat fairly well. Relatively speaking, I definitely have some big old fat cheat meals here and there, but I work out pretty hard and, I try to center those cheat quote unquote meals around those days if possible.
Shauna doesn't do, gluten, right? Cause her doctor told her to remove it from her diet. And, so she makes this thing that's amazing. It's, you take like aluminum, the aluminum pans, right? I don't know how to explain it, like the little pans. And she roasts cauliflower. So it's roasted cauliflower, and then she puts all the pizza toppings on that, right? Which I love because, dude, you could eat that whole thing, and it tastes amazing, and there's no like carb-loaded nap.
Right. Oh man, that's great. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out. I think we'll call this good for the main episode. And I got some weird questions to ask you on Patreon if you got time.
All right. Fair enough.
All right. Cool. All right, everybody. For Phil, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Again, if you need more with Phil and I, you can go over to Patreon, where for $5 a month, you will get extra episodes beamed right to your ears every single week. And don't forget, this is an audio podcast first. So if you really want to get these episodes and you want to get them sooner, they pop up every single Monday wherever you get your audio podcasts, and there are hundreds. We're knocking on the door of episode 400 in the audio format. So if you go to Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, go check them out. There is a ton of content there with a lot of your favorite guitar people. All right, folks, thank you very much. I'll talk to you on the internet very soon.